Chapter 1. The Dress That Never Got Worn. They say you always remember the moment you put on the dress. I did, but not for the reasons I wanted to. It fit perfectly. Silk, ivory, no frills, just elegance. I remember staring at myself in the full-length mirror and thinking, so this is what becoming a wife looks like. I didn't expect the buzzing of my phone to cut through that moment like a blade. Unknown number, you deserve to know the truth. There was a photo attached. I didn't open it at first. I just stared at the screen, heart hammering. Something in me knew. Before I saw it, I knew. When I finally tapped it open, the world went white. It was him. Ethan, my fiancé. In a hotel lobby, hand in hand with someone I knew far too well. Sophie, my coworker, my friend, the one who toasted to our engagement and helped me pick this very dress. The boutique fell silent. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, holding the phone in one hand, the satin skirt in the other. Everything felt too tight, the dress, the air, my skin. I left without saying a word. The saleswoman called after me, "Miss, are you okay?" But I didn't answer. How do you explain that your whole life just split in half? At home, I sat on the edge of my bed and watched as hours passed. Ethan called 7 times. I didn't pick up. He texted, "It's not what you think. Can we talk? Please don't do anything drastic." He sounded like the one afraid of falling apart, but I was already in pieces. That night, I slept in the guest room, not because he wasn't there, but because the bedroom belonged to a lie. I stared at the ceiling and whispered to the dark, "I was going to spend forever with you." In the morning, the wedding planner emailed about flower arrangements. I replied, "Canceled." No explanation, no apology, because what do you say when the man you were about to marry had someone else's hands all over him, while you were trying on the dress you chose for forever? But here's the part I didn't expect. I didn't fall apart. I didn't pack my things and run home to my parents. I didn't beg him to stay. I didn't even throw the dress away. I did something that shocked everyone, including myself. I went on the honeymoon, alone. Chapter 2. The Cottage by the Sea. The key was still in my inbox. A cheerful little message from the rental agency. "Welcome to your honeymoon hideaway. We hope you both enjoy a peaceful, romantic stay." I almost laughed, but nothing came out. I arrived 3 days after everything broke. The drive there felt endless. 4 hours of back roads, empty fields, and too much time alone with my thoughts. No music, no tears, just a strange floating stillness. The kind of silence that doesn't feel like peace, but like the space after an explosion. The cottage was small, whitewashed, with blue shutters and a front porch that faced the sea. Exactly what we dreamed of. Exactly what we wouldn't share. The door creaked when I pushed it open. It smelled like lavender and wood smoke, too gentle for the kind of pain I carried in. There were fresh towels, a welcome basket, a bottle of champagne waiting in the fridge. I left it there. I didn't unpack. I didn't eat. I sat on the bed with the suitcase still zipped and stared at the waves outside the window. I kept hearing our voices in the space. What we might have said, how he would have kissed me here, made jokes about cooking, pulled me close under those clean white sheets. He gave those moments to someone else, and I was the one left with the blueprint of a life that never began. That night, I finally cried, but not in a loud, cinematic way, just quiet, full-body crying. The kind where your face stays blank and the tears fall anyway. The next morning, I found a notebook in my bag. A gift from my sister, for all your married adventures. I almost threw it in the trash. Instead, I opened to the first page and wrote, "Day 1. I am not a wife. I am a woman alone in a house that smells like what I thought love would feel like." I kept writing. Not much, just the truth. I don't know who I am without him. I don't know if I was ever real when I was with him. I'm so angry I can't scream. I'm so tired I can't sleep. That page was the first breath I'd taken since everything broke. Later, I walked down to the shore. It was cold, even for spring. I stood barefoot in the wet sand and let the wind push my hair into my face. Let it whip at me. Let it hurt. And I whispered to the sea, now what? There was no answer, just waves. But maybe that was enough for today. Chapter 3. Salt and Silence. Days passed like pages I forgot to number. I didn't check my phone. Didn't answer the calls I knew were still coming. I stopped wearing makeup. Stopped brushing my hair every morning. There was no one to impress, and somehow that was both terrifying and liberating. I developed strange routines, boiling water just to hear it bubble, sitting on the porch long after the sun dipped behind the water, folding the same blanket and unfolding it again. I wasn't healing, I was floating. And every morning I walked, barefoot sometimes, in oversized sweaters and loose jeans I never wore back home. The beach became my place to breathe, not deeply, but enough. One morning I noticed him at the far end of the shoreline, a tall figure in a dark jacket, walking a large dog I'd never seen before. Not fast, not slow, just steady. He didn't look at me, and I didn't wave. We were two shadows moving through the same mist. The next day, he was there again. Same path, same silence. This time, our eyes met, briefly. His gaze wasn't cold. It was just unreadable, like someone who had built a home inside quiet and wasn't planning to leave it. Back at the cottage, I made tea and opened the notebook again. Day 5. I saw someone else breathing today, and it didn't make me panic. Is that a step? That afternoon, I ventured into the village for the first time. A sleepy seaside town with one cafe, one grocery store, and the kind of locals who recognize a stranger on sight. The man at the cafe counter nodded. Passing through? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Then I said the truest thing I had. I'm trying to remember who I was before everything. He didn't ask what everything meant. He just poured me coffee and said, that makes 2 of us. I sat outside with the cup cupped in both hands, watching people who didn't know my story. It felt strange, but good. To be unknown, to be no one, to not have to smile for anyone. Later, I saw him again. The man from the beach, this time walking alone, no dog. He passed by the cafe without stopping, but our eyes met again, and I felt it. Not attraction, not recognition, just this quiet mutual thing that said, you too? I didn't follow him. I didn't speak. But that night, I wrote in the notebook, maybe pain recognizes its own reflection. Maybe silence isn't always empty. Maybe we're all just waiting for someone to stay long enough to ask, are you okay? And mean it. Chapter 4. Things I Don't Say Out Loud. The journal wasn't just paper anymore. It had become my listener, my confessional, my late-night conversation partner when sleep refused to come. I started each entry the same way, dear me, or whatever's left of me. I wrote things I never said aloud. I missed the version of myself who believed in love like it was a safe place. Sometimes I still reach for my phone to text him. Then I remember. I'm angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. I don't know if I miss him or the life I thought I'd have. The pages filled quickly. Some days were messy, ink smudged by tears, scribbled out lines, unfinished sentences. Some days were clinical, lists of feelings, lists of things I'd done to survive the morning, lists of people I missed. But always, I wrote, because writing was the only place I didn't have to apologize for being a storm. One morning, I left the notebook on the porch table when I went inside for coffee. The wind flipped a few pages. I didn't notice. I came back out to find a stone placed gently on top of it, holding it open to the last page I'd written. Nothing else. No note. No movement nearby. Just a stone and a strange stillness in the air. I looked toward the path leading to the beach. No one was there. But I knew somehow that he had been... I picked up the notebook, read the last lines I'd written the night before. I wonder what it would be like to be touched and not flinch, to be held without bracing for the end, to not apologize every time I cry. My fingers tightened around the edge of the page. A flush of shame rose in my cheeks. Someone had read it. And yet, I didn't feel exposed. I felt seen. That night, I didn't cry. I lit a candle, left the notebook open beside me, and for the first time since I arrived, I didn't write about him. I wrote about me. I don't know who I'm becoming, but she's quieter than the woman I used to be. Softer, maybe, but still here. Chapter 5. The Stranger with the Quiet Hands. He was sitting on the low stone wall that edged the cliff path when I saw him again. The dog, a big black shepherd mix, was curled at his feet. I hesitated. Usually we just passed, eyes meeting, no words, but this time something pulled me forward. Maybe it was the stone he'd left. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't spoken out loud to another human in 3 days. Or maybe I just needed someone to hear my voice again. "Hi," I said, barely above a whisper. He looked up, nodded once. His dog raised its head, watched me silently. "I think," I added, stepping closer, "you left a stone on my notebook." A pause. Then he said, "It was open." The wind was flipping the pages. His voice was low, calm, scratchy at the edges, like he didn't use it much anymore. "I didn't mind," I said quickly, surprising myself. "I just wanted to say thank you. For the stone, it was thoughtful." He looked at me for a long second, as if weighing my sincerity. Then I didn't read much. My stomach tensed. "Even if you did, it's fine." Another long silence. Then he said simply, "It didn't feel like something I should touch." That hit something deep inside me. The way he said it, not because he didn't care, but because he did. Most people see broken things and want to either fix them or walk away, but he just sat there, still, present. "I'm Alice," I offered before I lost the nerve. Adam. The name suited him. Solid, grounded, quietly biblical. We didn't say much after that, just sat, side by side. Watching the sky turn that strange late afternoon color where the clouds don't know whether to rain or burn gold, his dog pressed its warm body against his boots. I folded my hands in my lap, unsure what to do with them, but I didn't want to leave, and he didn't ask me to. After maybe 15 minutes, I stood. "I'll see you around?" He nodded again. Simple, like he knew I would. Back at the cottage, I opened my notebook, wrote, "His name is Adam. He talks like the ocean sounds, quiet, not empty." And when he looked at me, I didn't feel like a problem to solve. Chapter 6. The Garden and the Ghosts. The garden had been left to wildness. Vines tangled around the fence. Weeds curled up between old stone paths. Lavender still bloomed, stubborn and soft in the sun. But everything else had surrendered to neglect. It reminded me of myself, beautiful once, but now a little too overgrown, a little too lost. I didn't plan to start gardening. I just stepped out one morning and pulled a weed, then another. It felt good. The resistance in the roots, the crackle of dry stems snapping in my hands. Control, small control. That's what it was. And needed that. I brought out a chair and my journal, set them beside the half-dead rose bush. Some days I wrote, some days I just sat. But the garden kept calling. So I answered with my hands. I found an old pair of gloves in the cottage shed, a rusted spade, a watering can with faded blue flowers painted on the side. It was enough. As I worked, memories came up like clumps of dirt. The first time Ethan gave me flowers, daisies, cheap but sweet. The night I told him I didn't want kids yet, and he smiled too fast. The moment I said yes to his proposal, even though a voice deep inside me had whispered, "Are you sure?" I kept digging. I began writing letters in the journal I never intended to send. "Dear Ethan, did you ever love me? Or did you just love the idea of someone who would never leave? Dear Sophie, I hope you lose sleep, not out of guilt, just from realizing someday what you stole wasn't yours to keep. Dear Alice, you are allowed to grieve the dream, even if you're the one who walked away from it." By the end of the week, the garden had changed. So had I. A few flowers bloomed again, and I was beginning to remember the rhythm of my own body. not tied to anyone else's desires or timelines. One afternoon, I heard footsteps behind me on the gravel. I didn't turn right away, but I knew it was him, Adam. He stood behind the fence, hands in his jacket pockets, watching me gently water the roses. "They're coming back," he said. "So am I," replied. He didn't smile, but his eyes softened. "Need help with the lavender?" I nodded. And just like that, we worked side by side, quietly, respectfully, like two people building something neither of them fully understood yet. That night, I didn't write a letter. I just wrote, "Some things grow back, if you let them, if you give them light, if you stop apologizing for needing time." Chapter 7, The Night It Rained. It started with thunder, far off, like a conversation happening just out of reach. I was sitting on the porch, arms wrapped around my knees, watching the sky bruise darker with every passing minute. The sea was restless, waves curling higher, wind cutting sharper. I liked it that way. Storms made the world outside look like how I felt inside. I didn't expect him to show up. But then again, I never expected anything with Adam. He walked up the path slowly, his jacket zipped, hair already damp from the drizzle. He didn't speak right away, just nodded toward the horizon. "Looks serious," he said. "I hope so," I replied. "I need a little chaos tonight." He looked at me, really looked. Not the way people do when they want to fix you, the way they do when they know what it's like to break. When the rain started, it wasn't gentle. It fell in sharp sheets, pounding the roof, drenching the porch in seconds. I scrambled to grab the notebook before it got soaked, and by the time I turned around, he was beside me, helping pull the chair cushions in. "Come inside," I said, without thinking. He hesitated, then stepped in. The cottage felt smaller with him in it, not cramped, just present. His silence wasn't awkward. It filled the space like steam, like something necessary after too much stillness. I handed him a towel. He didn't take off his jacket. He glanced around as if seeing my world for the first time. The candlelit corners, the scattered notebooks, the flowers in a jar by the window. "You've made it feel lived in," he said softly. I shrugged. "Some days I manage to pretend I live here." He met my eyes. "Some days I pretend I'm still living too." Something in my chest cracked open, not in pain, but in recognition. We sat on the rug, backs against the couch, as the storm howled outside. The lights flickered once. I didn't care. There was only the sound of rain, and him beside me. "I lost my wife 3 years ago," Adam said suddenly. His voice was steady, low. "She had cancer. We fought. We hoped. We lost." I turned to him, unsure what to say. "You don't have to tell me," I began. "I want to," he interrupted gently. "I don't usually, but you listen without pushing." I stayed quiet. He continued. "She loved lavender. She planted it everywhere. That's why I noticed yours. It's the only flower that still smells like her." I blinked away the sting in my eyes. "I'm sorry," I said. He looked at me. "So am I." We sat in the quiet. The rain slowed, and when he reached out, just his hand brushing mine, I didn't flinch. I let it happen. The contact, the closeness, the quiet truth of two people who had lost different things, but felt the same hollow. And I wrote that night, "There's a difference between loneliness and solitude." Tonight, for the first time in a long time, I felt the second. Chapter 8, The Space Between Us. The rain was gone the next morning, but I still felt damp inside, like something had been loosened and hadn't yet dried. Adam hadn't stayed the night. He left after the storm passed, after one long look and a quiet good night. No promises, no unfinished sentences, just the space between us and the quiet way it was beginning to change. I noticed him more after that. Not just his presence, but his absences. When I didn't see him on the beach, I wondered. When he passed by the garden and didn't stop, I missed something I never expected to want again, his nearness. It wasn't romantic, not yet. It was something gentler than that, a warmth where there had only been survival. I caught myself brushing my hair again before going outside, putting on a softer sweater, lighting candles in the early evening even if no one was coming over, as if I was preparing not for him, but for me. A version of me that still cared about comfort, beauty, company. He brought coffee the next time he came, 2 mismatched cups in his hands, no explanation. We drank in silence, seated on the porch like old friends who had long run out of small talk and were better for it. "You look lighter," he said suddenly. I looked down at my hands. "I don't feel it, but you seem it, like something inside you loosened." I thought of the night it rained, of how his hand found mine like it already knew the ache there. "Maybe I stopped holding my breath," I said. He nodded, took a sip, then looked out toward the garden. "You ever think we find people at the exact moment we forget how to be found?" I smiled, just barely. "Or maybe we finally let ourselves be seen." We didn't touch again that day. But when he left, he lingered at the door. His fingers brushed mine as he handed me the empty cup. It was barely anything, but it was everything. That night, I wrote in the journal, "He doesn't make promises. He doesn't fill the silence with noise. He just stays." And maybe that's what love is supposed to feel like. Chapter 9. The First Real Kiss. I didn't plan to invite him in. He stopped by with a wooden box he made himself, simple, smooth, engraved with lavender on the lid. "For your journal," he said. I blinked at it, touched by the thoughtfulness I didn't know how to hold. "You didn't have to." "I know," he said, setting it on the porch rail. "But I wanted to." The sky was soft with early evening, that golden hour that makes everything look kinder. I brewed tea. He didn't leave. We sat across from each other, not saying much. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was expectant, a current, something pulling us gently closer every time we paused. He noticed me watching him, not the way women are taught to watch men, not careful, not guarded, but honestly, he didn't look away. "I'm scared," I admitted, voice low. He didn't ask of what, just nodded like he understood anyway. "Me too," he said after a moment. The sun slipped lower. The air cooled. I stood to take the mugs inside. He followed, slow, silent, as if unsure whether he should. I let him. The cottage glowed with candlelight. I didn't turn on the overheads. It felt more honest that way, less exposed. I set the mugs in the sink and turned. He was watching me, not hungrily, not like I was something to conquer, just fully, like I was real. "I haven't been touched in a long time," I whispered. He stepped closer. "I won't take anything you're not ready to give," he said. His voice was steady. But his hands, they were shaking. I reached up first, fingertips brushing his jaw, rough with evening stubble. He exhaled. And then he leaned in, not all at once, not fast. It was the kind of kiss that asks permission with every breath. His lips met mine softly, like he was afraid I'd disappear, like he didn't want to wake me if I was only a dream. I kissed him back, tentative, slow, and then not, because something opened in me, something that had been locked behind betrayal, shame, fear. And suddenly I was here, not in the past, not in the pain, just here, with him. When we pulled apart, I didn't cry. I expected to, but I didn't. I smiled. "I thought it would hurt more," I said. He brushed his thumb gently against my cheek. "I think it's supposed to feel like this." That night, I didn't write. I just slept with the taste of him still on my lips, with my heart finally quiet, not because I'd forgotten the pain, but because I was no longer alone inside it. Chapter 10. How the Light Comes In. The next morning, I woke before the sun, not from anxiety, not from another dream of what I'd lost, but from a strange, steady calm. I lay there for a long time, just breathing, just letting the silence settle around me like a blanket. He had gone home sometime after midnight. We didn't speak much after the kiss. There was no need. Words would have only diluted what passed between us. I made coffee, lit a candle. My body still hummed. not with urgency, but awareness. Of my skin, of his hands, of the way he looked at me like I was something sacred, not something broken. I went outside with my mug. The sea was silver in the early light. The garden still smelled like damp earth and lavender. And on the small bench by the rosemary bush, there it was, a folded piece of paper tucked under a smooth stone. I opened it. His handwriting was small, neat, deliberate. You remind me what being alive feels like. I don't want to fix you. I just want to stand beside you while you rebuild. I smiled. Not the soft kind, the real kind. The kind that made my eyes sting with something good. That evening, he came by again. We didn't talk much. He helped me repair the broken shutter on the back window, held the ladder while I climbed, watched my hands like they were a language he wanted to learn. When we were done, we sat on the porch. He brought dinner, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and lemon water. No wine, no attempts to impress. Just food, shared. You ever think about leaving here? He asked as the sky turned pink. Sometimes, I said, but not the way I used to. He nodded. You seem more yourself here. Or maybe I'm just finally meeting her, I said. He looked at me then, really looked. I like who she's becoming. That night, I wrote in the journal, healing isn't loud. It's slow mornings, steady hands, someone seeing you and not looking away. Maybe the light doesn't return all at once. Maybe it sneaks in through a kiss, through kindness, through the quiet presence of someone who stays. Chapter 11. The door I didn't know I'd closed. It came in the form of a message. Buried beneath junk mail and newsletters, the subject line caught my eye like a stone to the glass. Can we talk? Ethan. My stomach turned. I hadn't seen his name in weeks, had almost grown used to its absence, but there it was, bold, blinking, breathing. I didn't open it right away. The rest of the day unraveled like thread. Nothing felt settled, not even the sea. I burned the soup I was cooking, dropped a cup on the tile floor, and didn't bother sweeping it up for hours. Even Adam noticed when he came by. You okay? He asked softly. I got an email, I said. From him. He didn't ask which him. He didn't need to. We sat on the porch in silence. The air was thick with things we weren't saying. You don't have to open it, Adam said. But if you do, read it once, then walk away. Don't bleed twice for the same wound. After he left, I stared at the screen. Then I clicked. It wasn't long. Alice, I know I don't deserve your time, but I needed to say this. I'm sorry. Not just for what I did, but for how I left you carrying the weight of it alone. You didn't fail me. I failed you. And I hope truly that you're somewhere healing. I hope you're okay. Ethan, I didn't cry. I didn't respond. Instead, I went outside and pulled weeds from the garden until my hands ached. Then I opened the journal. Closure isn't a letter. It's not even an apology. It's when you realize the wound doesn't own you anymore. I don't need to forgive him tonight. But I also don't need to stay angry just to remember who I was. The next day, I told Adam. Do you regret reading it? He asked. No, I said. But I don't need to reread it either. And that was the first time I felt truly free. Chapter 12, Where the Heart Settles. Adam picked me up just after sunrise. He didn't tell me where we were going, just smiled, a soft, patient smile, and said, let's get out of town, just for a day. So we did. We drove down winding roads in his old green truck, music low, windows down. The wind played in my hair like it remembered who I used to be. He glanced at me now and then, not to check, just to see. That meant more than he probably knew. We stopped at a village I'd never been to. Seaside like ours, but brighter somehow. More colorful shops. Flower boxes in every window. Laughter spilling from cafes. He bought us pastries from a woman with flour on her hands and a French accent. I found a bookstore tucked behind a gallery. We didn't talk much, but we walked close. Close enough that our arms brushed from time to time. At lunch, we sat in a garden behind the cafe. Vines twisted up the pergola. Bees hovered over clover. I forgot how good food tastes when you're not trying to survive something, I said, halfway through my sandwich. Adam looked at me thoughtfully. You're not just surviving anymore. I think I'm learning to live. We walked along the cliffs after. Below, waves crashed white and fierce against the rocks. But the wind was gentle, almost affectionate. I used to think I had to do it all alone, I said. What changed? You, he blinked, startled. Me? I nodded. You show up, quietly, without expectations. That's rare. He smiled, then looked away like the compliment was too heavy to carry. Later, in the truck, he reached over and took my hand. Not a question, not a claim. Just a moment, a promise in skin. When we pulled back into our town, I realized something. I wasn't relieved to be home, because home was no longer a place. Home was that feeling, safe, soft, steady, and it had started to wear his name. That night in my journal, I wrote, sometimes the heart doesn't need fireworks. It needs a soft morning, a warm laugh, a hand that stays. Maybe this isn't what I thought love would look like. Maybe it's better. Chapter 13, What We Choose to Keep. The weather turned warm again, the kind of warmth that seeps into your shoulders and tells you it's okay to unclench, the kind that makes flowers open, windows breathe, and hearts, if you let them, soften. Adam came by every evening now, sometimes with fresh bread, sometimes with nothing but time. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he came and stayed. We talked more now, not just about what we'd lost, but about small things, books, childhood memories, what kind of trees we'd plant if we had space, what kind of lives we might live if we were braver. I think I'd open a little wood shop by the beach, he said one night, sanding a frame for the garden gate. You should, I said. You think? I smiled. You already built me a box. Next is the world. He laughed, soft, surprised. The kind of laugh people forget how to make when they've carried grief too long. And in that sound, I felt something strange and bright. Hope. Later that week, I started clearing out the second room in the cottage. I hadn't gone in since I arrived. It had been storage, mostly. Boxes of my old life I hadn't touched since the move. I opened one, found the dress I was supposed to wear to our engagement dinner. It was still folded in tissue, still smelled faintly like lilac and nerves. I sat with it in my lap, then slowly folded it again, not in anger, not in mourning, just in release. That night, I told Adam, I think I'm done keeping ghosts in closets. He nodded. We all keep too many things out of guilt or fear. What do you keep? He looked away, quiet for a long time. Then, almost shyly, I kept her scarf. It still smells like lavender. A pause. Is that okay? He asked. I reached across the table and took his hand. Of course it is. Some things aren't meant to be forgotten. We just learn to hold them differently. We didn't kiss that night. We just held hands. But it felt heavier than a kiss, more honest. In my journal, I wrote, healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing what still fits in the future. And tonight, I realized something important. I don't want to keep surviving. I want to begin again with open hands and a heart that says yes